Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire, while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
Welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today, I've got a great guest. Some of the stories that you're going to hear today are going to be amazing. This gentleman, really, he has transformed his life, and it started from an early age that he transformed it into being a positive driving force. It is so great to have you on the show today, Adam Hires.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be on the show, and hope I can, hope is not a strategy, right? But yeah. I want to bring as much fire, right? Yeah, as I can to this podcast.
I love it because it's one of those things, and you actually developed the fuel, and it's kind of funny when you talk about it, and the fire needs fuel. And realistically, you transformed yourself. You have a background in powerlifting. And then what happened? And you had to transform your life into something where you're a top 1% income earner and loan generator in the U.S. How did that transformation take place?
Well, I'll have to go back a little bit, but we'll tell you. It originally started. I was powerlifting, and that was all that I cared about. It was my driving force. I boxed for a while, then I ended up coming across some magazines to powerlift and got hooked, and that was just my whole driving force, and everything was centered around putting all this armor on myself because I had a really bad childhood growing up with a very abusive father, mentally and physically. And so I had this, not to play on words, but I did have a fire inside me. Always was burning desire to be better, but it was really in a negative light, which I didn't ever fully admit. My brother, 4 years older than me, I always said, he was the angry one, and I was not. I was okay, but that was not actually the truth. I controlled it better in times, but not always. When I lifted angry, which led to a lot of big weights, but also some injuries as well, because, I was just pushing through some stuff I shouldn't. So I had all that centered around lifting. I was working. I wasn't a bum, but I was never trying to push in to work. It's hurry up, clock out, and, let's worry about lifting. And everything was vision. All that was, it was all this putting on armor. And I walked into so I was hungry. Didn't, have much food, and I had to go to the grocery store, and I was in my 20s, and I walked in, and I go, man, I need some peanut butter and jelly. That's gonna, right? That's gonna tide me over. And so I walked in and went to get me some jelly, and I looked on the shelves, and my favorite jelly is actually a jam. And it's raspberry jam. Love raspberry jam. Some people are like, what? You like that? Yes, I love that on PB&J. Love it. Love it. Really good. Right? It's good. So I look at raspberry jam, and it's $3.97. And I reached down my pocket, and I knew I didn't have much money. And I reached down, I had $32 to last me a week. And I was like, okay. And then I looked at, and there was grape jelly for 97 cents. And I kind of got a sad moment there. Like I can't even
have my favorite.
It's like very simple, right? But so I picked that up, and, I kept kind of going through life a little bit. Still, powerlifting was kind of pushing stuff off, but it was weighing on me. And, I started to kind of evolve, and then really something kind of triggered in me. I was continuing to push down the path, and I was reaching goals and ranked number one in weight class, and really just, wasn't all the way satisfied, and still didn't have any money because there's no money in powerlifting unless you're coaching, you're doing something that's, some coaching programs, you're an entrepreneur, in which I did some of that called Hulk Training Systems. So that was my first entrepreneur type of spirit and coaching people and putting it out there. But there's really no money in it and at that time I didn't know how to grow that business all the way.
Right.
But so something triggered in me and I said, I've got to do something in my career. And so, I went to I was at Ashley Furniture, moved up the ladder quick, went to be a general manager. Then I went to an Ashley Furniture, was running Ashley Furniture. And, it was a hot mess there. It was a hodgepodge. Nobody knew what to do with it because it was 40% clearance. Nobody else had 40% clearance. And it was just, they had no idea what numbers they're supposed to run. And, I got all this pressure going and I'm just learning and I'm trying to develop people. And, for anybody out there, the biggest mistake you can make, and I tell you what, one of those mistakes again, you'll remember, is never hire somebody that is not a cultural fit when they're not a cultural fit. And so I hired a
great suggestion.
Absolutely. It will kill your whole hopes, dreams of what you want to build pretty quickly. So I hired this, I sat down with this guy. I knew his stories don't add up, but man, I think he can sell. And I need a salesman on the floor that can sell. I'm the only one that can really sell at any kind of level.
Right.
My sales staff is just not that good. And so about a month in I realized how big a mistake that was. There was so much stirring in the pot, and it was one thing after another, and it was spiraling. And I didn't know how to keep that from spiraling. And I remember going home to my wife at the time, and I said, "Man, they're going to fire me." She's like, "They're not going to fire you." I'm like, "They're going to fire me. So this is coming." And so I went and looked for it. I was like, "What am I going to do?" So I went to an insurance place.
Yep.
And I went to a mortgage company, and I came home and I was fired up. I was like, man, I want this job. This is great. I think I can just crush it. And my wife was like, is that commission? I was like, all commission? I said, yes. She's like, oh, you ain't doing that. I was like, oh, okay. That sucks.
There's a little fear.
I was like, okay, I guess. And so about 2 weeks later, the best thing ever happened to me. Regional manager comes walking in, and I was like, well, here it comes, unannounced. Well, we're going to have to let you go. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a mortgage loan officer. Yeah. I had no choice, right?
Yeah.
I was like, so I went home. I was like, oh, well, they fired me, and this is where I'm going to go. And this is the path I feel for me to be able to be, to use my skill set, my drive, and not worry about all the other bull that goes along with, running the store like I had. And so I went out there, and I had no shifts. People talk about burning the shifts. I had no shifts. I didn't have really, I was making good money at Ashley, nothing crazy, but, I was making right at the six figures, which at the time I thought was, the world's dream, right? That I never, and didn't think anybody could make much past that. And then, so I was like, well, if I can make the same amount of money over here, that's good. But I didn't have all this crazy savings, and they gave me some small little compensation for a few months to get going, but I had to get after it. So at that point, it was study, YouTube, Google, how to be a mortgage loan officer and grow everything I could get my hands on. I studied for the test, boom, took it in absolutely no time. And so actually, I remember I took I got through this little course they had, and I scheduled the test on a Monday, and this was like a Thursday, and I had really studied, And I started studying Thursday and I'm starting to study Friday. And I was like, oh man, I need to push this test back. And this is, I'm ready. Right. So I call them and I'm like, hey, I need to push this test back, like a week or something like that. And it's like, oh, it's too late. You're already in. So, we can't reschedule. I said, well, if I don't take it, so well, it's a failure. And I'm like, oh God. Okay. Buckle up.
No pressure.
No pressure. So I get to this, I get there. Before I take the test, I pray. And I made a prayer. I said, God, if it's your will for me to be a mortgage loan officer, I'll pass this test. Otherwise because I had the insurance was a backup. And I pray that prayer and then I immediately have regret, like, oh, why did I even do that? I'm going to fail this test. Well, long story short, I did pass the test, come back outside. My vehicle was going out to start my vehicle and it does not start. And I'm like, I just didn't even care. I was like, I don't care. I passed my test. This is a new beginning. Like, I know, I'm going to make this thing happen. Like, the income's going to happen. I'm going to be okay. And then, I just went in and just did everything I could. Blissful ignorance, just going through everything I could to grow. And 3 months in, I have a good amount of deals to close. My 6 month in, I have like 20 deals I'm closing in my 6 month that month alone. And I'm at a regional meeting and they're like, how the heck are you doing this? So that was the start. That was the start of it. Yep.
I love it. I mean, the whole transformation, and it's funny because everything that you talked about is you bet on yourself early. You didn't know that you bet on yourself, but you did. So I want to go back to when you were lifting and talk more about the armor, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. I can relate to that with having struggled with PTSD and yourself having to go from an abusive, family environment and creating those walls. What are some of the things that you remember as your journey, as you were starting to bet on yourself? What are those little things that you can tell people that helped you to not just break the armor, but actually start to take it off to be able to be productive?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely love that question. It started for me and I do it in my coaching now, and I do it consistently, is I just look at one or two layers below the surface. Like, why is that making me mad?
Right.
What's really going on? Like, people could really learn a lot from that alone in politics, right? Like, why is that making me mad? Why is that pissing me off that somebody's a Republican or somebody's a Democrat? Like, and why is that really making me mad? And then, if people just looked below the surface one or two layers, they would uncover there's some kind of insecurity going on there. So, I had a lot of insecurity going. My armor was outside, and I was certainly armored from the inside from a standpoint of man, I was going to push through pain, and I was going to,
right.
I was relentless, which is one of the things that separates me, being just relentless on pursuing and crushing my goals. But there was a big empty hole inside there that I just never touched, because, if something triggered me, I never thought about like why it triggered me. It just triggered me. And
right.
And I was, I'm telling you, it's so funny because over time, how much I've changed. And if somebody challenged me at all, I was ready to fight you.
Right.
And the bad thing is I knew I could win because I had boxing background. I was growing up, I wrestled and I was strong. And so like, there's not that nobody could beat me up, very few. And so that was actually a bad thing in a lot of ways, because I knew that and it never allowed me to kind of dig inside and go, hey, why is this way? And, I don't know that I can point to exactly one thing that brought me to go, I've got to change. I've got to keep, but I knew that, I know that there was a lot of sad moments there, more than I like to admit. And those insecurities were just kind of piling up to where I was feeling so empty in so many ways. And then, for my transformation to keep continuing and I've done is just, what's the one or two layers? Like, why am I upset about that? What's going on? What's that digging back to? Is it an old messaging I'm having? So that's really what's helped me the most.
I love that, because you're talking very openly about it, because it's so powerful, because the things that you chose, boxing, wrestling, powerlifting, were all strengths. They're all physical strengths, which, like you said, I could go in and I knew that I could beat anybody, but internally you were still struggling with that strength to be able to power yourself. How did that change when, you go to commission only? I don't know. A lot of people understand the fear of that.
Yeah.
How did that physical strength that you had utilized as your driving force, your motivation, your kind of your power, how did that change that mental strength to be able to go into a commission only and say, I'm going to be number one?
Well, you're right. It is a scary thing, right? I was listening to something on Grant Cardone I think it was yesterday. Even somebody says, asked him basically, is this superhero and about being courageous. He's like, yeah. He said, well, what are you afraid of? He's like, everything. Right? Like, and so, but that's courage. You're going through it, and I always again go back to raspberry jam. I'm always going to have that. Like to this day, when I go and I look at raspberry jam, I have a trigger. I literally still have a trigger. Can I afford that? And I mean,
that's crazy.
I'm not going to go into how much money I make, but
you make a lot.
Pretty good money. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but you still have that, and you still go, okay, and I still always have that driving force of I am broke every single day. When I wake up, it's like I'm starting from zero. And so there is that. But what the big thing is, there's two things. One, all the things I did leading up there led me to be able to have, that strength and courage to kind of just keep on going, keep on moving, and, keep having the discipline to wake up and do it again. And it's just like I shared again today was, be urgent in your action, but be patient in your results.
Love that. Yeah.
And so just like my podcast, for example, Mortgage Talks, I went 10 months and, it wasn't going anywhere. And all of a sudden, it just blast. All of a sudden, boom, it's, what was it? Last 30 days, it's done more than it did in the first 10 months. And so it's just one of those things where you just know that what you're doing is going to result that, just like it was in lifting. But what the challenge was different, and what I always wanted to do, because, I never wanted to do anything in work. I never wanted to do anything physical, like as a job, not because I couldn't, because I had this, first of all, I had the that messaging from my father, like, you're stupid, right? Like you're not intelligent enough to do anything but something physical. So, it was a challenge of something. I wanted to challenge myself outside of the physical, and, it be just mental, and having real conversations. I was an introvert for so long. What's funny is if you look at the disc profile, right? I love disc, disc profile. My disc profile has changed over the years. My disc profile now is like a 90 something on the I, which is interactive, right?
See, I love that.
I'm a high D with high D and I, which makes me a great driver, decision maker, high I interactor, which makes me highly, successful in being able to sell, to go in front. I'd love if you told me tomorrow, hey, Adam, you're going to be on stage in front of 10,000 people and talk about your powerful event, which helps people grow their business. Be like, yeah, let's do it. What's up? But it's just a far cry, but it's just those steps that I take. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm done with being, labeled by my father or what I can do and what I can't do. And I had to it was a new challenge. And I love, more than anything, I love the growth, because if I can do it, if I can overcome those things and be where I'm at, then anybody can. And I was what's funny is for a brief stint, I was actually a correctional officer. And at that time, like, one of my buddies was like, I don't even recognize you anymore. Like, cause I was not a talkative. He's like, you're out there like doing all these speaking and man, you're everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm just a completely different person and in a very positive way because I was so shut off. And it's a lot of that was because the armor of, I didn't trust myself. And really when it came down to it, right? Yes. I did not trust myself. If you looked at me the wrong way, that I wouldn't punch you or I wouldn't it wouldn't ruin my day that I would be so furious. And so I didn't trust myself. And that was one of those 1 or 2 layers I had to dig below. And now it's like, you know what I do? You know what? It's okay. I get rejected all the time. Like, and that's
a tough industry.
Everything. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. Now I got to ask you an important question. Here's the question. So what is more valuable to you? And because you've been on the top in different things, was the more value in the being a number one in weightlifting, which would have been like that physical aspect, being in the top 1% in income earners, or being able to buy raspberry jam without the thought process? Which one is more important?
It's a raspberry jam. It's a story.
I love that.
It's a story.
And why? Yeah.
Because it's taken ownership of who I am and what growth I've had. And I think about the raspberry and people, I was asked this, I was on an interview today and, asking me why. And I don't have just one why. I think, right. but a lot of it is the raspberry jam. And the raspberry jam goes back to my daughter, my 5-year-old daughter. Like I want to make sure that she always has her raspberry jam. My team, every time I add a team member, I want to make sure they have a raspberry jam. Like
I absolutely love that.
Yeah. And it's an ownership and like it is a personal affront for me not to provide the staff when they are working their butts off, me not to provide them the best living they can have. And that because they deserve it and they deserve the best for me.
Right. I know people that are hearing this are wanting their raspberry jam. So make sure you go to hirescoaching.com. You're going to be able to find your raspberry jam. I love that because if you think about the aspect that so many people want to get to the top in that physical category, like Tom Brady is the number one, football player, and you were the number one in weightlifting. So many people want to get that financial top. You were the top 1%. But when you get back to it, it was a $4 piece or $4 product of raspberry jam that was so ingrained in your mind. I love that piece of it because it provides that fuel for other people. What are some of the things that you talk about in your course that help people to kind of get out of that mindset of I'm chasing the money instead of I am chasing myself and the money will come after that?
Well, I think it's different for everybody. You have to get that trigger. You have to go to the trigger points of what's going on. Everybody has there's themes. There's stories, but there's themes in the stories. And a lot of people tell stories, and it's just like I tell a raspberry jam, but like what's the theme in it, right? And so for me, it's always trying to uncover the theme. There's different themes like we talked about a few where you have the old messaging or, there's so many different ones that trigger people. And that's the most important. It's because most times people just gloss over and everybody there's all these nice, beautiful, sexy stories, right? That people get lost into, right? Like you ever talk to someone and they're trying to hold them accountable and like, it'd be like me where, I've had it, right? I've had a processor where I'm like missing dates or the missing or the borrower's not getting their documents. It's like 10 in a row. You're like, and then every one of them has this story. It's like, there's a theme here. The theme is like, you're not doing your job. The theme is like, where's it coming from? Like, you're not taking ownership. That's one thing I can tell you that, but there's themes you have to, so I would say out there is don't get lost in your story without looking at the theme.
Oh, I love that. I always say your strength is in your passion. And I think it aligns with that is that theme. I always talk about impact moments in lives that correlate to that purpose and passion. And you can definitely see that in your life, the impact moments. How do you address with some of these people? Because a lot of I want to go back to the armor, because I think it's such a powerful thing, an armor or mask, that taking that negative to a positive. How do you take that difficult time? And I was never abused. I don't even want to say that I even know what you feel like, because my situation is different. But how do you take that negative aspect and even get to be okay to turn it into a positive and move forward?
Well, I look at it as such a strength, right? I mean, you can look at it one or two ways. You could be the victim or you could be the victor. And I look at it as, if I'm going against somebody that's never been through that, like, come on, man. I mean,
right.
You're going to beat me? I don't think so. Like I had, I've been against those battles, right? Somebody, it was so funny because, I try not to let stuff bug me, but once in a while you get that. It was a few years ago, I had a real estate agent that was, I don't know, they got snotty and just like basically, and they went like, they're like, well, I'm not sending you any more business. And basically they said they made me. I'm like,
oh no,
you made me. You made me.
Okay.
It's like, I was like, okay, really. That's, that's the only way I grew my business kind of thing. And it's like, no, what made me was getting through, those rough times where I didn't think I was going to survive, and I not only did I survive, I made sure I thrived. And right. So I just look at it as always like that's my strength. I think again, if you look at it as that's my strength, that's my advantage over everybody else, and right. Try to turn it and just keep reminding yourself, what's the advantage in this? What's the advantage for me going through what I did? And I, it's one of those things that it's not always easy. Like I don't want to sit there and go, hey guys, like this is so easy to do. It's a continuous process. Like it's sales, here's what I love about sales. What I absolutely love about sales and entrepreneurship is that it is such a beautiful growth process, because the ones that are at the top have the strongest mindsets out there. Like you can take an entrepreneur at the top level, and it is hard pressed to find somebody that has got a stronger will mindset, because it is like it will beat you down, because that's why most people can't do it. You have to reset every single day. Like I just reset every singet day. Boom. I get off track. I reset. And you just got to keep continuously reset. But at the end of it, you're going to just look back, and it's kind of like that, like the podcast, right? If you look at it, every day sometimes or whatever, it's like you don't see the needle moving, and all of a sudden, boom, it's just going to overnight. It's like, wow, and the same with lifting, right?
Yep.
Like you can go, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a result. So just reset every single day and understand that, I've got to do that. And it's not going to be easy, but again, where's my advantage for going through the things I've gone through?
I love that. And you're talking about your podcast. Make sure you go to Mortgage Talks. I can only imagine the amount of wealth of knowledge that's coming out of that podcast, just with the short time that we've been together here. Now, I want to go into that, because I know when you were talking about being able to turn it into a positive, some people are always worried about being numb to situations. How do you not develop that numbness and be able to move past it and not drive back into it?
Make sure I understand your question correctly. So I want to make sure I definitely answer that. So the numbness. So you mean like
just numbing the bad incidents in your life, or numbing the pain from, a lot of people have the pain from getting rejected from jobs or not having the money coming in. How do you get over that numbness?
Yeah. And then you're just kind of just going through life. Right. I mean,
yes.
I just want to make sure I was tracking with you all the way now, track for sure. So, That's a good one. That's a really, really good one. Like that's a really good one. By the way, you're very good at what you do. No, seriously.
I'm editing that out.
No, you're really good at what you do for sure.
I appreciate
This is great. So my memory is really a little wonky sometimes, right? Because I did go through so much. Like I remember, so my brother and I kind of we didn't see each other for a while. And actually I didn't see my mom from age 10 to 20 years old. And then my brother still thought there's influence from my dad going on with inside me. So he didn't want to see me for a while. It was a weird stuff.
Wow.
So my brother and I got back together, and then we started jiving, and then he was like, remember that time? And I was like, and it was bad, like traumatic things, right? Because I was like, oh yeah. And it was really a weird memory because I did so much suppression. I mean,
right.
And so, there it can be numbness and things that you do, and you kind of try to block them out. And I think there's, it's definitely the brain's way and the heart's way of protecting you. But I think that you also need to, for me, going into some of those emotions and diving back into them really helps me. And I've actually, tried to go back into those a little bit. I don't want to go an extended amount of time, but I try to dive back into that a little bit about what went on in that pain, because it actually does help me, therapeutically and also, again, it goes back to my why and how I want to be different and what really how I'm made. And so, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for making sure that you at least address it, because subconsciously, it's being addressed with your emotions every day.
Exactly. I love it. And you need to go to Hires Coaching, HIRES coaching.com, because just the success that you've come, how far you've come, and the understanding that you've created, I can only imagine the reach and the power that your coaching has to be able to help other individuals through these kind of challenging times. And what would you say one of the biggest things that you ask your coaching clients to do that first session to be able to find their greatest potential?
Well, I think that what I tell them, first of all, is whether it be me or whether it be somebody else, and what I would tell anybody else out there is that listen to one person for at least 30 days, 90 days. Don't have too many mixed messages because, I told my last client that I just signed up, I was like, listen, 90 days, like you can't listen to anybody else. And that's not because I'm almighty God over here. Okay. It's just that, we don't want to we want to have that, uniformity, what we're trying to do, not mixed messages. It's just like programs, right? Like, how many times that, people have tried to mix and match programs or whatever for lifting. And it's like, no, you're just now you're just throwing out the whole thing altogether. So, not that you can't do other things outside of that, but at least until you get that real groove and you have, you have the mindset set up to where the new program, you have what you're going to do, what you're going to accomplish, all those things, you're kind of got them rolling, and it's now becoming a little bit second nature. Then you want to add some stuff on or do something. That's fine. You can go, okay, I'm going to listen to this, that. There's serial readers, and I've definitely been one of them. And sometimes, you have to step back and say, okay, well, I can just read and not get everything. Can I go in and study? Can I do some homework on it? What can I do to really go deeper dive in?
I love it. I love it. Well, Adam, you're such a great human being. I love what you bet on yourself and the things that you're talking about. I appreciate you coming on today, but we're not done yet because I've got 3 questions that I always ask all of my guests. And, I like to stress you out a little bit, but obviously with your background, there's no way of stressing you out here. So here's the first question. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So what would be one big suggestion or advice that you would tell your 18-year-old self?
Man, I would say that the number one thing would be, to get a mentor for sure. Too long without a mentor. I mean, I had, man, that's there's no doubt that's the number one, because I didn't have a mentor growing up, and that's what took me so long to be. That's why it took so long to get into business and actually start doing anything with my life. It's because I didn't have a mentor. I had just negative stuff going on. If I had a good mentor, reached out to a good mentor, and linked on, man, it would have saved me tons of heartache, tons of years being unhappy.
Oh, I love that advice. That's such a huge thing. All right, here's the second question. And this one's kind of related to everything that's going on now and in a lot of people's lives. Is they're having hard times. You're having challenging times in your life. And a lot of people are looking for their things to be able to start living forward. What would you say is 2 daily habits, either in the morning or in the evening, that you would suggest that people incorporate right now into their life to start living forward?
Well, I have these powerful events called Powerful, and it's power with a 4 in the middle, FUL. And
I like it.
And that stands for energy, prospecting, marketing, relationships. And so I would say the two things on the bookends, right? The two things on the bookends is where am I going to get my energy from today? And I'm not talking about Red Bull and coffee. I'm talking about sustainable, wide vision, energy, sustaining energy that day. Like, where am I going to get that from? Where is it going to drive me through? Where is it going to push me, to do the next call, to do the next activity, to move with an operational tempo that others don't? Right. Where am I going to get that energy from today? And I think the second thing is, again, is just the relationships. And so I was coaching a guy, and he was working too many hours. I'm trying to get him to reduce that. However, he had to hire someone to do that. And I said, here's the thing. I said, let me ask you something. If you had only 1 hour a night with your wife for the rest of your life, that's all you could have. It's all you could do. Is it possible for you to have a better relationship with her than you do right now? And the answer is yes, because it's intentionality, it's in focus. Because what is he going to do for that hour? He's going to plan what he's going to do for that hour. He's going to make sure that and I have this quote. It's who's go be someone's hero today. He's going to make sure he's that hero to his wife that day for that hour. And it's not about work. Everybody's like work-life balance. It's focused life balance. That's what it's about.
Ooh, I love that. I'm stealing that from you now.
Go ahead. I'm good.
I'll get you 10% commission on that. All right, here's the last one for you. This one's a fun one. Yeah. So if you had a chance to have coffee with 3 people, they could be deceased or alive, at a firehouse table. In other words, you could ask them anything that you want. Nothing is off the table. Who would they be and why?
Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, I love that one. Yep.
I quote him all the time, which is, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. Love that one. Obviously he was just, civil rights leader and just a pioneer. And I'll tell you what, talk about walking through fire, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Number one guy for sure. Let's see here. I mean, it's a tough one. Let's see. Probably. I mean, we'll go with Abe Lincoln. He just seemed like he would probably give you a lot of good stuff, and I would probably then Clint Eastwood, because he's just my hero, man. I love Clint Eastwood. I love me some Clint. If Clint passed away, I will I'll probably be a mess for a day or two. So just, I never met the man. Love me some Clint Eastwood. So
I love that table. That is a fantastic table right there. Well, Adam, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I greatly appreciate it. You need to go to hirescoaching.com, or you can go to any of the podcast listening platforms that you go to. Look for Mortgage Talks, and you can hear more from Adam. Adam, thanks again for being on here today.
Man, it was a true pleasure. I tell you, you never know how it's going to go with the flow of the chemistry. But I tell you what, I could do this. I mean, many more times. It was really free flowing, and you could tell that you're living out what your passions and your dreams, and you're doing the right things. You could tell you're someone that is intent on listening and growing. Man, I love it.
Hey, well, you better keep to that word, because I'll have you back on.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.